So welcome to Boxing Media Hub, proudly in partnership with Falcon Contracting and Jam's Boxing Chat. And with me now, I've got Ben Doughty. And how you doing, Ben?
I'm good, Joel. Good to be here. Looking forward to talking about the big one on Saturday and anything else that you might wish to discuss.
Yeah. It's a fight that's been in the pipeline for some time, probably since the first one. Everyone's been knocking on the door of that one, haven't they, ever since?
Yeah, I mean, I recall it being announced very quickly. You had the first fight on May the 18th, which
Yep.
obviously had an enormous amount of fanfare around it. And then I think it was within less than a week, I believe Turkey Al Sheikh had announced the rematch will be December 21st. And as you might recall, a lot of the Tyson Fury skeptics are saying, "Nah, he won't. He'll pull out. That won't happen. That will fall through." Because people kept saying it the first time, and obviously there was a postponement. You'll remember
Yeah.
the cut eye, but there were a
Yeah.
lot of skeptics saying that Fury would not make it to this rematch on December 21st. So he hasn't got long left to pull out. Is all I can say, Joel.
Yeah. No, certainly not this time. And people were even saying, weren't they, about that they thought he'd had his eye cut on purpose.
Oh
He'd
yeah,
done all
yeah.
sorts, didn't he, to try and jeopardise. When you think the amount of money on the line, Ben, it's
Well, you know,
madness.
there was a $10 million forfeit, wasn't there, for
Yeah.
pulling out of the fight, and that was very much publicised before the postponement. And I think Fury said, I think that was after the initial postponement. They said there would be a $10 million forfeit if
Yeah.
anybody pulled out of the May the 18th
That's right.
date. And Tyson did make some remarks this week, talking to Sky Television. He said that, you know, maybe I shouldn't have boxed because I couldn't spar as much as I wanted to. The preparation wasn't ideal. Like, with hindsight, sensibly, it might have been a better idea to pull out and cost myself 10 million. But obviously, nobody does that. He was never going to do that. But yeah, I mean, people were suggesting things like, you know, either he wasn't cut and he faked the injury, or else he deliberately engineered a situation where he got headbutted elbowed and cut, and the
Yeah.
sparring footage. And you'll get all the conspiracy theorists in this day and age, especially in this, that we can all become editors and you know, master editors on our own phones now. So people will slow down footage and say, look, that Anthony Joshua blow that knocks out Francis Ngannou, it didn't land. Look at that. You know what I mean? You'll get all of
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
today.
Yeah. We had it with Fury versus Wilder with the
Yeah.
shot that connected in the last round. Everyone was going, "Oh, it's he didn't connect properly," you know. And you think it is what it is. You've just got to, you know, it's happened. We move on. We're gonna get this. We're gonna get the second fight. I'm excited about it, Ben. I know you are. It's a big fight, especially for us boxing fans, and it's one that has people tied in knots once again. We've got Fury turning up in a lot better shape. He's had 3 months of not talking to the wife. We're having all this stuff coming out. Usyk looks as driven as ever, gone up in weight as well. He looks physically like he's really adapted to heavyweight life now. It's an intriguing one. Before we have a chat about you, Ben, give it to us. What's your prediction?
Well, I think the variable here is Tyson Fury because, as
Yeah.
you say, there's this sense he's had a better camp. He may come in heavier. I mean, he was 262 last time, which is not exactly, you know, a Twiggy-esque kind of anorexic weight to come in at, but
Yeah.
he was, you know, but some people, if you look at maybe his best ever performance, perhaps could have been the Wilder rematch in, I believe,
Yeah.
February, was it February 2020, I think it was. But regardless,
Incredible.
the second Wilder fight could have been his best performance, and I believe he weighed 273 pounds or somewhere in the region for that. So some people think Fury will weigh heavier than he did last time, and that may be of advantage to him. We talk about, is he in a better mindset? Is he in a better place now? Has he had a clearly better camp because he's been able to spar without the worry of the cut eye? And also Tyson Fury does have a historical record of performing better in rematches. That is written in stone. That every time he's fought someone again, he's improved on the previous performance. Certainly with any second fights, with Wilder being and Chisora being the only trilogy examples.
Yeah.
So that's all about Fury. You know, I think we know, as you suggested, Usyk is just ludicrously consistent and solid. And he's a great fighter. He's wonderfully skilled. He's got a great chin. He's got lots of heart. He's got that hallmark of a champion, which is able to dig a bit deeper when the chips are down and when questions are asked of him. So I think Usyk, you can hang your hat on him. It's in analysing how we think this fight rematch will go, it's all about Fury, isn't it? The variables and the game plan that that I suppose he's lost the element of surprise, Usyk. That there was a relative surprise that he brought the fight to Fury last time,
Mhm.
and he was quite aggressive. He didn't run from him, and he set a pace. It's been said enough times. He set a pace that Fury wasn't comfortable with. I still thought that Fury was starting to beat him up after 7 rounds, and I felt I picked him on the show. And because myself and Michael Olajide and Gary Stretcher are very competitive with one another, I was feeling pretty good about the fact I picked Fury, and I was waiting to tell Silk that I told you so. And you know the rest. Quiet 8th round, and everything turned on the spin of a coin in the 9th round. Fury was lucky to get through the 9th round. If the referee had stopped it, nobody would have had an issue with it. That was you've seen fights stopped for less, but he did
Yep.
recover, and it was still a close fight. But after that, Usyk was in ascendance, and that was that, and he was a rightful winner. So I think when we look at how that it will pan out, it's all about Fury. Will Usyk be that aggressive again? Okay, that's the one variable on his side, or will he decide to change it and give him some different looks? Will Fury be kind of Wilder 2 style aggressive? He's talking that way. He's giving that's his body language and everything else. That's what it comes down to. If you
Yeah.
want me to call it as early as this on the show, I'd say that I do lean towards Usyk again. But
Yeah.
but I am looking forward to it. I think it's highly intriguing. I actually think I'm looking more forward to this than the first one.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm with you. I think the first one has given us a taste, and this is going to be almost round 13. I think it's
Yeah,
got that feeling to it where Fury saying, "Well, I gallop." He took round 12, and he's thinking, "Well, I can go from there."
yeah,
So let's see. As you say, it's intriguing. Usyk knows how to adapt in a fight. I think we've seen that in every fight. He's got this ability to just
yeah.
switch it up, change what he's doing, and he's mesmerising to watch. And he's fantastic. Boxing ability. He's just got the full works. So I'm excited. I'm genuinely
Yeah.
excited for it. So let's.
Absolutely, same. And I wouldn't mind. I'm never patriotic about boxing. I know some people are, and that's fair enough. I've never been patriotic about boxing in terms of who I root for, and I know a lot of people aren't in this day and age. Certainly, because there's far too many Brits rooting for Usyk as well, or rooting against Fury. So that's just the way things are in the modern landscape. But on a personal level, I quite like Fury to win, just because some of the people who dislike Fury and never give him a break. I find them a little, even though some of them are good friends, I find them a little bit irksome, and I wouldn't mind them getting straightened up a little bit. One in the eye for the people who hate Tyson Fury. I would quite enjoy him winning because because he's something that doesn't fit into the computer, isn't he? I mean, I know that Usyk
Yeah.
is a very classy guy, and other people say he's better to represent the sport. He's better guy to wear the crown that represents the richest prize in sports. But I don't mind the wild card and the mischief that Fury injects into boxing life, and I would quite enjoy the reaction of those who would be pissed off by it on Sunday. I
Yeah.
like Usyk, I admire Usyk, and if he wins again, that's fine, and I think he probably will. But if Fury wins, I will get a kick out of that, Joel.
It sounds like you've got a few names of friends already lined up, ready to
Yeah, there's a
have a
few
go.
who just don't leave him alone, to use a kind of topical phrase, because that's
Yeah.
Usyk's thing in it. I won't leave you alone.
Yeah. Yeah.
But but there are some of them. It doesn't matter what Fury does. He's brought it on himself to a degree because he makes outrageous statements and he's not everybody's cup of tea. And some people don't like the way he's so fluently foul mouthed and profane. Some people will never be okay with that. They think it's just a bad representation of the
Yeah.
manly art of boxing or the womanly art of boxing as it is today as well. But I've met Fury a bunch of times, and I'm not going to say he's my favourite fighter by any stretch of that I've met, but he's all right, I think. Deep down, I mean, he's okay, regardless of what people say about him.
Yeah. Yeah. No, 100%. Jam has jumped in the chat. He's put, "Hi, Joel and Coach Ben." Definitely his best performance. I think he was talking about the Wilder 2 there.
Yeah,
Will he come in again with that seek and destroy mentality? If so, he'll be much better, but Usyk's still hard to beat, in his opinion. So, yeah, he makes it entertaining, love him or hate him. I
I mean
think
that was the
that's
thing, you see, Joel, that when Fury stuck it on Wilder in the second fight, that
oh,
worked
it was
because
unreal.
if you back Wilder up and take his long levers away, and make him uncomfortable, then he hasn't got anything else in his locker. But since when has Alexander Usyk struggled with somebody coming to him and
Yeah.
somebody pushing him backwards? That it's not an issue for him, is it? He thrives in that. He's great at moving and sticking and moving and using the ring. So you're not going to take Usyk out of his comfort zone in the same way you can with a Deontay Wilder.
No, definitely. And as you say, he's got plan A, B, C, D, E, F. He goes on because he just literally, mutates into the next thing. He rolls into the next thing. He just evolves as the fight goes on. But as you say, as boxing fans, it's an absolute treat, and I'm looking forward to it. And the undercard, looking forward to that as well.
Yeah, it's a shame we lost the Dennis McCann Peter McGrail fight
Yeah.
from the undercard, but that situation has happened. We'll have to hang fire and see how it plays out with McCann and the British Boxing Board of Control and UCAD. But I was looking; that was the pick of the undercard, I think, and unfortunately, it fell out.
Yeah, yeah. But we shall see. We shall see. But we want to have a chat about you, Ben. 38 amateur fights. Enjoyed every moment of it.
Do you know what? I wouldn't say I enjoyed every moment of it, because I think the nerves that you feel when you box. I remember the 1980s, and much of those days I remember smoky working men's clubs. I remember a non too reliable minibus that we'd often hired. Oh, we had a club one, I think, at some point, but I do remember little mishaps, like the head coach, who was a fellow called Tony Marlowe, God rest his soul, would sometimes forget. He was that guy. He was a very great guy, and he was the pillar of the club. But organisationally, he had his foibles, and there's certain things he would forget. Like he'd forget to order a minibus, and we'd be waiting to go to a show out of town on Saturday, and he'd say stuff like, well, I can't remember everything, and it's like, well, that was kind of pretty pivotal, quite important, quite crucial to the whole enterprise. So I remember dodgy minibuses that always, or not always, but often seem to break down on the whatever motorway, the M5 or the M4, whatever. And then often one of the boxers' girlfriends, one of the senior boxers, might bring a girl with them on the trip if they could smuggle them on, as it were. And I remember so often some ladies' tights being used to create a fan belt, which apparently is something you can do. I learned at an early age when the bus breaks down. So I remember these intimidating, smoky working men's clubs. And I remember just the nerves and the looking around the dressing room, seeing kids that vaguely might be your opponent, because you often didn't know you had a name on a program, an initial, weighing in and feeling a bit cattle market about it all. And I remember that, like I say, the low ceilings, the big chandeliers, hotels, working men's clubs. And it was, it's quite a thing to go through. So the nerves are quite hard to. I remember a few times, honestly, saying, once I get this fight out of the way, I'm never doing this again. I'm not going to do this. I'm talking about I'll be 13 or 14. I'll be like, I'm not doing this again. But obviously, you get in there, you box, if you won, you feel the adulation, and you think you were crazy to have felt that way. And even if you lost, you were still like, oh, well, I want a rematch, or I'll be back. And, people are saying consoling things to you. And, it's not a loss, it's a learning experience. You certainly didn't feel like quitting boxing. Again, you wanted to get back in there because you just lost. So, whatever happened, but it was it was something quite difficult initially. I didn't really control the nerves as well as I liked to until I got to about 17 or something like that. So can't say I enjoyed every minute of it, but no, it's obviously I love doing it. The bigger part of me loved it. Yeah.
Yeah. And obviously, out of the 38 fights, what was your record?
I won 26 of those fights.
Oh wow!
The first one. It's funny, really. The first fight was March the 13th, 1981. I was 11 years old and I weighed 4 stone 10, and I beat a kid.
4 stone.
4 stone 10, yeah, 4 stone 10.
Wow.
And I beat a kid from Penhill Boxing Club, which is in Swindon. I was boxing out at Roxburgh House ABC in Stroud, Gloucestershire, and I beat him on points. That was my first fight, and then my last fight was March the 25th, 2004, at the Boston Dome, or the Boston Arms. There was like a venue upstairs in Tufnell Park, which is near Kentish Town, okay, in North London. So those first fight, debut and last fight, are 23 years and 12 days apart, which is in terms of year span, that's a very long amateur career. To only have 38 fights in that kind of time span is not very many, because obviously you'd expect someone to have had more like 200 if they had that 23-year career. But I had a big gap was the thing in the 1990s, yeah. But I still remember all the fights. I remember the opponents, and I had 26 wins and 12 losses.
Well, I just think to go in there at the age of, you say, 11,
Yeah,
and do what you did, however long you do it for. I think that's a real test to you over that length of time to continue to do it. Some people really, struggle to get in the ring once. So to have that career over that span of time, I think you were due to turn pro in '91. I think
yeah, that's
I
right.
heard you say before.
Yeah, you know what? And that was because I basically boxed up until 1988, and I'd had three senior bouts at that point. I won one by stoppage, um, one on points against a good guy from the army, from the two para, I think, regiment,
Yeah,
and I lost one to a guy who I saw recently. He actually coaches today at Baker Street Boxing Club in Gloucester. His name was Nick Purcell. I boxed him at Gloucester Ledge Centre, and he beat me. I think it was majority. So of my three senior bouts, I'd won two, one by stoppage, and I think I was starting to mature, get man strength. And then I kind of went off the rails a bit. I mean, I've once I left home at 18 and got a job and a flat, the boxing took a bit of a back seat. And then I ended up going on quite a different journey in the 1990s and living this more bohemian existence and playing guitar and traveling and playing in a few bands and whatnot. And I retained my love for boxing. And I think I retained that sense of identity that I still saw myself as a boxer. And I was never shy of telling anybody about that. I had 34 fights at that point behind me. But no, it was something that I went to America on my own in 1990. It was like August 1990. Someone had given me a free ticket. It was called a standby ticket. Went to New York for a week. Went to Chicago for like 6 weeks, or Chicago area. Then I ended up in Boulder, Colorado for about 3 months. Came back on Christmas Day. Had no money, no passport, but got back somehow from Boulder, Colorado to Richmond, Surrey, including a taxi, with no money and no. I didn't have a
as,
ticket either. I
as
managed
you
to get the
do.
ticket. Yeah, and that's all the story in the first autobiography. But so anyway, once it was what I'd missed when I was away in Colorado in 1990 was the Nigel Benn Chris Eubank fight, which was September the 18th. Sorry, November the 18th, 1990. Okay, now because of that, I got back, and the first thing my dad wanted to show me, because I've been away for nearly 6 months, he was like, "Oh, you got to see this. That Nigel Benn lost, but you got to check out this Eubank. He's different. He was a big Eubank fan, and he wanted me to catch up on all his boxing that I'd missed in 6 months. So I watched the fight. Now, Eubank's first defense was against Dan Sherry, the Canadian fighter, who was managed by Sugar Ray Leonard at the time. So my dad got it into his head. We used to go to the Thomas a Beckett gym many times, the legendary gym above the pub on the Old Kent Road, many times during my amateur career in those days, and I would train there with the pros. Now, at some point, he'd heard that Sherry would be training at the Thomas a Beckett. So, consequently, he thought if we go there, never mind meeting Dan Sherry, we might meet Sugar Ray Leonard. So that's the only reason we went. And what I said was, why don't I have a workout? Then we don't look like autograph hunters, and it gives us a bit more license to be hanging around there. And maybe we could speak to Sugar Ray Leonard, maybe we get a picture, whatever. So I went there training purely on the premise of trying to meet Sugar Ray Leonard. Sherry never showed, no sign of Leonard. Obviously, they were actually training somewhere else, and his information was wrong. But I got talking to a fellow called Harry Burgess, who I'd known during my amateur days, and he started giving me a bit of coaching, or saying, "How you doing? How sort of shape you in, or do you want a bit of sparring?" And I said, "Yeah, okay." So I did a bit of sparring with a few pros at the gym there then, and one thing led to another. And the next thing I knew, I was agreeing that I was going to turn pro, because initially he said, "Well, we get you a few amateur contests to shake the rust off if you want." And I said something along the lines of, "Oh, I'm not really interested in trophies. I've got enough of them." And he said, "You interested in money, son?" And I said, "Yeah." And he said, "Well, there you go. You're my man." And so then he wanted to turn me over, yeah. And initially I agreed, but to be totally honest, my heart wasn't in it. My dad really wanted me to do it, but I was going out drinking with my kind of musician type friends. I was experimenting with drugs, soft and hard. And at some point, I pulled the plug on it and just said, I'm not feeling this, because I didn't. I was 21 years old. I didn't want to make those sacrifices at the time. You know,
Mm.
I had long hair at the time, halcyon days. Didn't want to get a haircut when someone said, "Oh, you need a haircut," because boxers are supposed to have short haircuts. I wanted to be a rock and roller, you know, which I look back on that now and just think, you know, what on earth was I thinking? Because being a rock and roller didn't earn me a row of beans, you know. Got some
Yeah,
stories out of it, but
yeah,
that was it. So I hope it's rather long-winded answer, but that yeah, in answer to your question, I was going to turn pro in 1991. Barry Jones, former WBO super featherweight
yeah.
champion of the world, he basically says, "Let me condense it for you, Ben. You were going to turn pro, but the cat was sick. End of."
That's one way of saying it.
Yeah,
But you know, you've kind of been in love with boxing ever since. You know, you
yeah.
found your love again.
Yeah,
Um,
I never really turned my back on it fully. I would still be that guy in the pub watching any. I would bend anyone's ear. I'd find you watching a Nassim Hamid fight
yeah,
in the
yeah.
pub in the 90s. I'd start waxing lyrical, and people would start saying, "You're a bit of an encyclopedia, aren't you?" And so you know, what I mean, it didn't take much to awaken it.
Still,
And
yeah, yeah,
and then and then I'll say it was 2002 when I was seeing some girl who was just like a really she was perpetually drunk, but she was it was forgivable because of the age she was. She was like 19 or 20, whatever, maybe 20 years old, I think. And she was this kind of mouthy little feisty Shoreditch socialite who was always drunk, but she got away with it back then. But me and her were having a day off one day. We were supposed to be at work in this call centre. We bunked off and we were having a drink in a pub in Richmond called the White Cross. And anyone who knows that pub and that area, certain times of the year you get high tide, and if you're not careful, you get stuck in the pub. You get flooded in there, which obviously I used to think was brilliant.
yeah. How awful.
Do you know what I mean? And that was the thing. That's like most people are like that, aren't they? Especially if it's a Saturday or whatever, or even if it's your lunch hour from work and you don't really care about the job and you're
Yeah,
getting a
yeah,
basic wage. You're just like, oh well, it looks like we'd love to come back, but we're stuck in the pub. So this looked like it was happening again, and I was willing to let it happen. And then suddenly she said, "Take me to a boxing show tonight." You know, just completely out the blue. And I was like, well, it's not like going to the cinema or the opera. You can't just go to a boxing show any night you want in London. You have to
yeah,
you
yeah,
have to see if there is one. And I said to her, well, if you really want to go to one, I could go to WH Smith's and have a look at boxing news because I wasn't in the loop at the time. And I said, but we better get out of here quickly, otherwise we're going to be stuck here for several hours because of the tide. So we ran out of there, finished the drinks, and then I looked in boxing news, and it just so happened that Danny Williams was defending his British heavyweight title against Michael Sprott that night. It was
yeah,
February
yeah.
2002. And it was on BBC as well. Boxing News was saying this is brilliant that it's going to have terrestrial coverage. This is the first time in a long time. And so in any case, I phoned this number, and I think it was Eugene Maloney, the former Frank Maloney's brother, who answered. And I said, "Can you get tickets on the door?" And he said, "Yeah, you know, if you get there early, you should be able to. There's 11 fights on." So we went to this show, and then after that, we went to another one and another one. We went to saw Dominic Negus versus Audley Harrison. Saw Prince Nassim Hamid's last fight against Manuel Calvo at the London Arena. So she got really into it, and so did I. We were like fixtures at all these shows, and then by the time on a whim we decided to go to New York, and I noticed that the Ward Getty rematch was on November 23rd in Atlantic City, which was a few days after we arrived. So I said, well, we may as well go to that. And it was after that, to be honest. So Paul Malignaggi boxed on the undercard. He beat a guy called Paul Delgado, 8-rounder. And I went to Gleason's gym on the Monday after the Getty Ward rematch and then started talking. The next thing you know, I've signed up, I've joined. Malignaggi was there, and I was like, hey, did I see you in Atlantic City on Saturday night? You look good, man. And he's like, hey, what's up? You know, and next thing you know, I just fell into it again. That's how it happened, really.
Yeah, yeah. And now a coach, well, an author, and the list goes on. Ben, you're a man of many talents.
Well, yeah, I'm not coaching boxers anymore lately in the last couple of years. I started coaching at the Angel. When I got back from New York, I boxed out in New York and lost a split decision to some kid called Ashanti Hendrickson, who did box Danny Jacobs as well in some kind of championship final out there. But I got back and I joined the Angel Boxing Club, and all I was looking for was a couple more bouts before I hit the upper age limit at 34, and I wanted to help out with the coaching. So they took me on. They got me 3 bouts, I think they got me, for the Angel, and I was coaching at the same time. So I was like a player manager kind of thing in a football context.
Yeah,
John
yeah,
Ryder was the main talent that saw down there when I got there.
Yeah,
So
quality.
I've obviously been very proud of his success. But so I started coaching the juniors down the Angel. Then I joined the Repton in 2005 because it was the Mecca club. I saw it as the Manchester United of British amateur boxing clubs. So I've trained amateurs at Repton until about 2000 and it was about 2008, and then I got a job in a commercial gym in Southwark called City Boxer. It's called the Ring Boxing Club, and the brand is called City Boxer. It's still there today, and that's where I met Spencer Fearon, who's an unforgettable character. I'm sure you're
Yeah,
familiar
yeah.
with him. And then there was a fighter called Jack Morris, light heavyweight, who had one. He had his debut and lost it, and he was getting. And then he won his second fight. Then he was getting ready for his third fight, and something happened with his trainer. Well, he fell out with him, whatever. So he said, "I might need you to train me for my next fight." So because of that, I applied for the license with the Border Control. So in
Mhm.
2008, I got there. I trained a few fighters. I managed one fighter, which was Robert Asagbird, a welterweight, the guy that I probably spent the most time with. And then, to be honest, in the pandemic, it sort of petered out for me. I stopped renewing my license, trainer's license, during the pandemic.
Mhm.
And although I have plans to renew the manager's license next year, I haven't really coached fighters much, except for a little stint at Roselle Amateur Boxing Club during the pandemic. I helped out with the amateurs a little bit, but most of my coaching today is with clients, you know.
Yeah, yeah. And as Jam said, Master Knowledge.
Yeah, Spencer.
You're yeah, 100%.
Because
But
he means
your
Spencer.
knowledge,
He doesn't mean me. He means actually Spencer. I mean, it could.
but
I mean, I appreciate
I
you.
think it's two ways on this one, Ben. I think it's two ways. Don't take some
Oh yeah,
credit. I
listen,
think,
I don't feel dwarfed by his boxing intellect, but Spencer is. Listen, Spencer's got that tag. A lot of life is about trademarks and who gets there first. And Cougar
yeah,
Cassius gave him the name The Knowledge, right? He called him Spencer the Knowledge Fearon. It stuck, and then Spencer added the Master on. You know, never,
as you do.
never too shy and retiring to never burdened by false modesty, Spencer. So he called himself Master Knowledge. You don't forget his mate Tunde calls himself Master Genius. I love them both; they're like family. But yeah, Spencer is. I mean, he is very knowledgeable. You like to say, and you look at the landscape today. A lot of press conferences, and a lot of them don't have much knowledge of boxing history. They're clued up on the here and now, which I suppose someone could argue that's all they need to be clued up on. But it's
Yeah,
nice when you
yeah,
can go back a bit with someone who can talk boxing history with you. You know.
yeah, yeah. That's like I talk to Spencer Oliver quite a lot, and
Yeah.
and he's the same. His boxing knowledge, he just picks it out of the air. He's one of those guys that he just rolls back to, oh, do you remember the time when? And I'm thinking, I was only born in '86. But do you know what I mean? It just incredible what the
I like
knowledge that
Spencer
people have, and
Oliver
I
a
love
lot.
it.
Yeah. I
Yeah, really nice.
most recently saw him at the York Hall when the Mark Nielsen's last show, which Mitchell Smith from Harrow made his comeback on.
Yeah, I was there.
Well, you were there, okay? So you were
Yeah,
there. So there you go. Spencer was commentating with Dan Aziz at ringside for the broadcasting platform that night. But yeah, I love Spencer. Me and him commentated on a show once, but it was almost wonder I should say it. It wasn't a border control show. It was a German boxing federation or something show. It was one of them. It was one of them slightly moody promotions. It was a professional boxing show, but it was promoted outside of the board's jurisdiction, but at the York Hall. So me and Spencer did, job's a job, isn't it? I mean, me and Spencer did the
did
commentary
it?
that night for it, So yeah, I like Spencer a lot. Great guy.
Yeah, I was literally sat opposite. He was that side of the ring, and I was the other side doing media.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. So
Yeah, yeah,
I was just behind Spencer and Dan. Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
Probably opposite
It
you.
was a good night. It was a good night. But yeah, Jam said, "What books do you have out, Coach, that we can purchase at the moment?"
There's 5 of them on Amazon. Gems. There's Drink, Drugs, Birds, and Boxing Volume 1, which is it's like a coming of age. What it is, right? When I'm almost embarrassed to say that I have 3 autobiographies, because obviously someone could say, "Who the hell are you to have certainly more than 2?" I know Chris Evans had 2 autobiographies, so maybe I got the idea from him subliminally, because Chris Evans wrote his life story in 2 volumes, because I guess he had a lot to say. But what it was, I was writing in the pandemic and I was finishing something I'd started a long time ago. And I
Mhm.
got to a certain point, and I got quite inspired because there was not a lot else to do in the pandemic, was there, except go for
No,
a bit of exercise and do whatever we did. So I got really inspired, and I thought, you know what, I want to put this out now. This is a nice little novel tale. Um, I could test the waters and see if people like it. So it's volume one. So I did that. Then I did volume two, which described a bigger chunk of the story, which was called Drink, Drugs, Birds, and Boxing Volume Two. And then I still hadn't told the whole story, including when I got sober, my recovery story. So I called that one Throwing in the Towel. And that's the one that's got most of the stories of legendary boxing people in it, like your Sugar Ray Leonards and Joe Calzaghe's and Frank Bruno's and everything else. And my journey in that particular, in that industry. So there's three
Yeah.
books. There's a volume one and two. There's Thrown in the Towel. I also wrote a biography of Wilfred Benitez, the great Puerto Rican fighter, and I wrote a book about the notorious junior middleweight Tony Ayala Jr. So there's five of them out there. You can get them all on Amazon if you just type in Ben Doughty books. I will clarify. There's another Ben Doughty who wrote a book on weightlifting or bodybuilding. It's not me. Some people confuse it with me because he's got exactly the same spelling. And I think he might have wrote something else about strength and conditioning. So if it's about bodybuilding or S&C, it's not me. The other five are me.
No, 100%. And yeah, get out there and buy Ben's books. As you can tell, the man is full of talent. And what a story, Ben. What a life you've had up to this point. And I say up to this point because there's still a long way to go. There's still much more out there.
Yeah, hopefully. I enjoy these days more than ever, I think, because I've got sober 7 years ago. I think there's an increased serenity and consciousness in being sober and finally transcending all that stuff that you used to do, those behaviours, So, obviously, we get older and at some point we decline, but I'll be 55 next February. I feel all right at the minute. So, God willing, I'd like to be around for a lot more kind of adventures, including podcasts and everything else.
No, 100%. And Jam saying there, buying that as soon as this ends. That's my kind of title. He says that as his wife's probably elbowing him. But yeah, Leroy saying here's an interesting one for you, Ben. Billy Joe Saunders needs to get back. Jam saying Billy Joe Saunders a bit out of weight of late though, but was a class boxer in his time. Would you like to see him back?
I don't know. In a way, I'd like to see him if he wants to come back. Billy Joe's quite a good friend of mine. And I'd like to see if it was a legacy enhancer and it was better than finishing on the note that he finished on, which was the loss to Canelo, the retirement loss, then I would. But I don't really see it because what are we cracking on? Was it 2021, August 2021, that fight, was it?
It's going back now. It is going back. I
think it was 2020, was it? I think it was August 2021, I believe.
But I thought he had a really good account of himself in that fight. I thought he boxed really well. I thought it was just Canelo just showed another level.
Yeah, and I think Joe was Joe was doing well and was competing, but he was having to box out of his skin to compete with Canelo, whereas Canelo was cruising somewhat and started to turn the screw. I think it's a shame it ended the way it did, the orbital fracture, because obviously Billy Joe's another one who, because of his bombast and his kind of practical jokes and his pranks and everything else, he's never going to have a shortage of detractors and knockers. And because of that, you have to be, if you're going to be like that, you better hope that you don't show that kind of human failing, because people will jump on you and they will deride you and they'll say you're a quitter and all the rest of it. So I would like to see him erase that sense of that, legacy. But all I know is he's cracking on either 3 or 4 years out of the ring now. I think it might be even approaching 4 years at this point. And I've not seen anything from him that would indicate he's coming back. He told me well over a year ago that he misses the sport, and that's why he was thinking of coming back. They always mention Chris Eubank Jr., the unfinished business, still that rivalry. It would still sell, but I just think someone like Joe, who loves eating, and he would put on so much weight in between fights, because he likes his food. Billy Joe is not a big drinker; he never was that I knew of. I don't think he knows what recreational drug. Well, he might do. I don't know, but I don't think he was into drugs ever. Not a big drinker, but he liked food, and that was the thing, and that's what he treated himself with in between fights. So if it was like that during his career when he was younger, I don't know if he's going to have the motivation to come back now, because I think he's set for life financially too. I'd
Oh yeah,
think
I'd
so.
have thought so. I'd have
So
thought
what
so.
does he need to come back for? What does he? What does he? I just and if he hasn't done it already, why is he going to do it now? Because the longer he's out, it's going to be more like a kind of Muhammad Ali, Sugar Ray Leonard level comeback, where they were out
Yeah,
3.5 years, and Sugar Ray only had one fight in 5 years. Joe Lewis obviously spent about 3.5 years out because of the war, the Second World War, and his involvement in that. But I don't see. I don't think the average fighter does that. Most fighters don't come back. I mean, George Foreman came back after 10 years out. But most
yeah,
fighters, if you haven't done it within a couple of years, are you going to do it? And if
yeah,
so,
yeah.
why?
Yeah, no, 100%. Well, Ben, it's been an absolute privilege having you on. I could listen to you all day. I could have you on every week. You're one of those guys that's got the knowledge, the stories, everything, and it's honestly been an absolute pleasure having
Been
you
an
on.
absolute pleasure for me too, because to be honest, I enjoy this because I'm not the interviewer. I like being interviewed because normally it's the other way around, and it's nice to have that. It's not pressure. I don't think it is pressure, but you know what I mean. It's nice to have those roles reversed where you can throw it to me and I can talk. I enjoy it, so we will do it again.
No, 100%. And yeah, roll on 2025. But as like Ben was saying, live each day as it comes, and just enjoy life, because as we get older, we see more loss, and we see a lot of things as we get older, and yeah, we just got to take it as it comes, haven't we?
Yeah, a lot of people didn't make it to this round. These are the championship rounds.
This is it, mate. This is it. So thank you very much, Ben. Enjoy the
Anytime.
boxing this
For sure.
Saturday, as I'm sure you will. Just a quick one. The fight I am really looking forward to is actually Johnny Fisher and Dave Allen.
Yeah, I mean,
It,
I just
it's
think Dave.
I
Dave
like
is another
both of
one
them.
who.
Yeah,
Yeah, they're both good characters. They're both good characters. Do you know? Funny enough, Dave Allen, right? The first time I met him was I had a fighter. I was working with a fighter called Larry Olabamiwo, a big, kind of Hackney-born Nigerian heavyweight. Or whether he was born in Hackney or not, he was more from Hackney than he was from Nigeria. And he boxed Dave Allen at the was it Radio City at Newcastle or something like that.
right.
In 2000 I think it was 2015, but regardless, Larry pulled out after 2 rounds with a damaged bicep or shoulder or whatever it was, and which was a bit of an anticlimax. And Dave Allen came over, like you do to the other corner, and you say hard lines or well done, whatever. And he said, "Ben, your Facebook page keeps me entertained for hours," which I thought was cool to say that. And Johnny Fisher's a good lad as well, but I just
Yeah,
think
lovely lad.
Fisher's a young guy. He's in form. He's knocking people out, and I think Dave. Some people use the word the back nine. He's on the back nine. Americans use that for someone who's definitely on the decline. So I'd be very, very surprised if Dave upset that apple cart.
Yeah, because he's saying only his words this week in an interview. He turned around and he said, I will beat Fisher, and then I'm going to go and get that British title, and I'm going to win it outright. So he's got a drive in him, which
Yeah.
we haven't heard for quite some time, to be honest, have we, Ben? It's good to see him back in a place where he's got something to head for. Before he was kind of in and around, and financially he was looking for that time, wasn't he? He's now got his properties and stuff like that, but now he's got that direct route that he's got in mind. But as you say, Fisher, he's Romford Bull for a reason, and he does what exactly says on the tin, doesn't he?
Yeah, I mean, I hope Dave makes a good fight of it. If it was one of those kind of sad, poignant rubouts, blowouts, I wouldn't like to watch that. So here's hoping Dave means it and he can carry it out.
Yeah, no, 100%. Well, thank you very much, Ben. We'll catch up
No worries.
soon. Also, have a very Merry Christmas. Love to all the family, and yeah, look after yourself, and we'll stay in touch.
Good man. Speak soon.
Yeah, take care, Ben. Thank you.
Thank you. Cheers.